The wine glass hit the floor first. Then the music stopped. Every head in the Maple and Strings bistro turned toward the woman in red, standing frozen by the doorway, her hand still raised where the glass had slipped from her fingers. The sound of shattering crystal cut through the warm hum of conversation and left nothing but silence and the faint echo of piano keys still vibrating in the air. But she wasn't looking at the mess at her feet. She was staring at the little girl in the wheelchair. The man at the piano, mid-30s, white shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, forearms marked with old scars and engine grease that wouldn't wash out, didn't notice. His fingers were still resting on the keys, his eyes closed like he was somewhere else entirely. The kind of elsewhere you go when music is the only language left that makes sense. When words have failed you so many times that melody becomes prayer. The girl beside him was clapping, her small hands moving in rhythm even though the song had stopped. She had long braids tied with pink ribbons that caught the light from the fairy bulbs strung overhead, and a smile so bright it made the expensive chandeliers in the room seem dull by comparison. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, maybe 9. Her legs were thin beneath the blanket draped across her lap, and the wheelchair she sat in was old, the kind you get from a hospital when you can't afford the newer models. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. The woman in red took a step forward, then stopped. Her heels, Italian leather, probably worth more than the piano itself, crunched against broken glass. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, like she'd just run a marathon. Around her, waiters moved quickly to clean up the shattered glass, but she didn't seem to notice them either. She didn't notice anything except the girl. One of the diners leaned toward his wife and whispered, "That's Vivian Cross." The wife's eyes widened. "The real estate woman?" He nodded, keeping his voice low. "Owns half the city. Maybe more. I heard she just closed a deal that put 3 companies out of business." His wife glanced at Vivian again, taking in the designer suit, the diamond earrings that caught the light, the way she carried herself like someone used to getting exactly what she wanted. "She doesn't look so powerful right now." And she didn't. Vivian Cross, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, who'd fired executives with a single glance, who'd built an empire from nothing and crushed anyone who got in her way, was trembling. The man at the piano opened his eyes and looked down at the girl. His expression softened immediately, the lines around his mouth easing into something gentle. "You okay, sweetheart?" She nodded, still grinning. "Again, Daddy. Play it again." He smiled, tired but genuine, the kind of smile that comes from someone who's learned to find joy in small moments because the big ones keep getting taken away. And his fingers found the keys once more. Clair de lune. Soft and haunting, the kind of melody that wraps around your chest and squeezes until you can't breathe. The kind of song that sounds like longing and memory and hope all at once. The notes drifted through the restaurant, and conversations hushed. A few people pulled out their phones to record. Others just listened, caught in the spell of a man who played like his life depended on it. Because it did. Vivian's client touched her arm gently. "Miss Cross? Are you all right?" She pulled away without answering, her eyes locked on the girl. On the way her head tilted when she laughed. On the shape of her nose. On the small birthmark just above her left eyebrow. A mark shaped like a crescent moon. A mark Vivian had kissed 1,000 times before it disappeared. "That's impossible," Vivian whispered. Her client frowned, concerned now. "What is?" But she was already walking toward them, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, each step deliberate and slow like she was approaching a ghost. Like she was walking toward something that couldn't be real, but was standing right in front of her anyway. The man at the piano glanced up briefly, offered a polite nod the way musicians do when they notice someone watching, then went back to playing. He had no idea who she was. No idea that the woman in the red suit standing 3 feet away had just recognized something he didn't even know was missing. The girl looked up at Vivian and waved, her small hand moving back and forth with innocent enthusiasm. Vivian's breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred. She reached out to steady herself against a nearby chair, her knuckles white against the dark wood. The song continued. Beautiful, devastating, each note like a knife. And Vivian stood there, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to do anything except stare at the child she thought she'd buried 3 years ago. What would you do if you saw someone you thought you'd lost forever, standing right in front of you, but they had no idea who you were? 3 years earlier, a car crashed on a back road outside Phoenix. It was raining, the kind of rain that turns asphalt into mirrors and makes headlights blur into useless smears of yellow. 2 vehicles collided at an intersection where the stop sign had been knocked down the week before and nobody had bothered to replace it. The driver of the first car, a man named Marcus Cross, died on impact. The airbag deployed too late. His neck snapped against the steering wheel. He was 43 years old, father, ex-husband, real estate consultant who'd spent more time building other people's dreams than his own. The child in the back seat vanished. Police searched for weeks. Helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights cutting through the desert darkness. Search dogs followed trails that went nowhere. Volunteers combed miles of brush and rock and emptiness, calling a name that never answered back. Lana Cross, 6 years old, last seen wearing a yellow raincoat and light-up sneakers. Nothing. No body. No evidence. No clue. Just gone. Vivian Cross spent $2 million on private investigators. She hired psychics who claimed they could feel her daughter's presence. She offered rewards that made national news and brought out hundreds of false leads. She followed every tip, chased every shadow, drove herself to the edge of madness trying to find a child who disappeared like smoke. But her daughter, Lana, was gone, declared missing. Presumed dead after 6 months when the search teams packed up their equipment and the news cameras moved on to the next tragedy. She never stopped looking, even when her lawyer told her to accept it, even when her therapist suggested closure, even when her friends stopped calling because they didn't know what to say anymore. Vivian kept searching, and now, standing in this small-town bistro with fairy lights strung across the ceiling and the smell of garlic bread and rosemary in the air, she was looking at a girl who had her daughter's face. The exact same face. The man finished the song and leaned down to wipe the girl's cheek with his thumb, a gesture so tender it looked rehearsed, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Easy, Nora. You're going to make yourself dizzy. Nora, not Lana. Vivian's hands clenched at her sides, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms hard enough to leave marks. She forced herself to breathe, to think, to not scream, to not run over there and grab the child and demand answers from a man who clearly had no idea what he'd stumbled into. The man stood and stretched, rolling his shoulders like someone who'd worked a long shift before coming here. His shirt was clean but worn, the fabric thin at the elbows. His hands were rough, calloused in a way that didn't match the softness of the music he played. Mechanic's hands, maybe, or construction, the kind of hands that fix things for a living. He looked at Vivian and smiled politely, the way you smile at a stranger who's standing a little too close. Evening, ma'am. You need something? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. The words wouldn't come. How do you tell a man that the child he's raising might be stolen? How do you ask questions that could destroy everything he knows? Your daughter, she managed finally, her voice barely steady. She's very talented. He glanced down at Nora, and his whole face changed, softened in a way that made him look younger, happier, like the weight he carried everywhere else disappeared when he looked at her. Yeah, she's my reason for breathing. Vivian felt something crack inside her chest. Something that had been holding her together for 3 years suddenly gave way. She turned and walked back to her table before her legs collapsed, before she started crying in the middle of a restaurant full of strangers, before she did something she couldn't take back. But to understand why that moment shattered her world, you need to know how it all began. How a man named Elijah Ward ended up raising a child who wasn't his. How a hospital made a mistake that buried the truth for 3 years. How a system designed to protect children failed so completely that a mother spent years mourning a daughter who was alive. And how one Thursday night at a piano would unravel everything. Elijah Ward woke up every morning at 5:30. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. The alarm buzzed from the nightstand. A cheap digital clock he'd bought at a thrift store after his old one died, and he reached over to silence it before it could wake Nora. She slept in the bed across from his, her breathing soft and steady in the pre-dawn quiet. Her wheelchair was folded beside the closet, next to the stack of medical bills he'd stopped opening because knowing the numbers didn't make them any easier to pay. He sat up slowly, feeling every year of his 36 on this earth. His back ached from yesterday's shift at the garage. His hands were stiff from gripping wrenches and turning bolts and doing the kind of work that broke your body down piece by piece. He rubbed the oil stains on his palms that never quite came out no matter how hard he scrubbed. 3 years of working at Jimmy's Auto and Repair had left permanent marks. On his hands, on his back, on the part of his soul that used to believe things would get easier. They hadn't. He pulled on his work shirt, gray with his name stitched over the pocket, and jeans that had been patched twice at the knees. He laced up his boots, the leather cracked and worn but still functional. Function mattered more than appearance when you were living paycheck to paycheck. He walked into the kitchen, careful to avoid the loose floorboard that creaked. The apartment was small, one bedroom that he and Nora shared, a bathroom with cracked tile and a shower that only produced hot water on good days, a kitchen barely big enough for one person to move around in. The window in the living room didn't close all the way, and in winter the cold air slipped through the gap like an unwanted visitor. But it was theirs. For now. Until the next rent increase he couldn't afford. Until the landlord decided the building was worth more as condos than low-income housing. He made coffee in the same chipped mug he'd used since his wife died. Her name was Kendra. She'd loved jazz and terrible horror movies and the way rain sounded against windows. She'd laugh at jokes that weren't funny and cry during commercials with puppies. She'd been the kind of person who made the world feel warmer just by being in it. She died in a car accident 3 years ago, and some days it still felt like she was just in the other room. Like if he turned around fast enough, he'd catch her standing there with that smile that used to make everything okay. But she wasn't in the other room. She was gone. And Elijah was left with a daughter who needed more than he could give and a job that barely kept them fed. The accident had been chaos. 2 vehicles. A storm that turned the road into a death trap. Elijah remembered fragments, the sound of metal crushing, the smell of burning rubber, someone screaming. He remembered waking up in the hospital with machines beeping around him and a nurse telling him his wife didn't make it, that she died before the ambulance even arrived. He remembered the hollow feeling in his chest, the way the world suddenly felt too big and too empty at the same time. And then, hours later, someone else came into his room, a social worker with tired eyes and a clipboard. She told him there was a child, a little girl from the other vehicle. No family, no ID, no one coming for her. She was alone, just like him. They told him she'd been in the other car, that the driver had died too, that she had a spinal injury and would need surgery and months of therapy, that the system was overwhelmed, and if he knew anyone who could take her temporarily, it would help. Elijah looked at this small, broken girl with a face full of fear and pain, and he didn't think. He just said, "I'll take care of her." No one questioned it. The system was a mess. The paperwork was incomplete, and Elijah Ward became a father to a child who wasn't his by blood, but became his in every way that mattered. He named her Nora because it meant light, and he needed light more than he needed anything else. He poured his coffee and walked to the window. Outside, the city was waking up, streetlights flickering off, delivery trucks rumbling past, people heading to jobs they probably hated. Somewhere out there, people were living easy lives. Lives where hospital bills didn't pile up like threats. Where rent wasn't a countdown clock. Where you could buy your kid new shoes without checking your bank account 3 times first. But Elijah didn't have time to think about that. He had a daughter to raise, a job to get to, a life to hold together with duct tape and hope. He played piano because silence hurt more, because when his hands were on the keys, he could pretend the world made sense, because music was the only thing that still felt real. Thursday nights were sacred. That's what Elijah told Nora every week when he wheeled her out of the apartment and down the street toward the Maple and Strings Bistro. She'd clap her hands and laugh, and he'd push her chair a little faster just to hear her squeal with delight, just to see that smile that made every impossible day worth it. "Daddy, go faster. Any faster, and we're going to take off, sweetheart." She giggled, the sound bright and clear in the evening air. Like a rocket. Exactly like a rocket. He picked up speed, jogging alongside the wheelchair, and she threw her hands up like she was on a roller coaster. The bistro was 6 blocks from their apartment. 6 blocks of cracked sidewalks and storefronts with signs and languages Elijah couldn't read. 6 blocks of life happening around them. People coming home from work, kids playing in the street, someone's radio playing old R&B through an open window. Nora waved at everyone they passed. Most people waved back. The bistro owner, a woman named Ms. Lorraine who had gray in her hair and warmth in her eyes, had a soft spot for them. She'd lost her own son years ago to an illness Elijah never asked about, and maybe that's why she let him play during dinner service. She'd never say it out loud, but he knew. He saw it in the way she always saved them a table, in the way she'd slip Nora an extra dessert when she thought he wasn't looking. She let Elijah play in exchange for a free meal and $20 cash. It wasn't much. It barely covered the bus fare he saved by walking, but it was something. And on Thursday nights, it was everything. When they arrived, the restaurant was already half full. Couples sharing wine at corner tables. Families finishing dessert. A group of older men playing cards near the bar. The smell of rosemary and butter and fresh bread hung in the air, mixing with the low hum of conversation. The fairy lights overhead cast soft shadows across the wooden tables, making everything feel warm and intimate. Elijah wheeled Nora to her spot beside the piano, close enough that she could see his hands move, close enough that she could feel the vibrations of the keys through the floor. He learned early on that she experienced music differently than most people, that she felt it as much as she heard it. "You ready?" he asked, kneeling beside her chair. She nodded, eyes wide and bright with excitement. "Can you play the moon song? Clair de lune." "Yeah, that one." He smiled and stood, adjusting the piano bench until it was just right. This was the part where the world got quiet, where the bills and the eviction notices and the fear that he wasn't enough all faded into the background, where everything else fell away and there was only music. He let his fingers hover over the keys for just a moment, feeling the weight of them, the potential. Then he started to play, Clair de lune, slow and gentle like a lullaby, like something whispered instead of spoken. Nora swayed in her chair, her small hands tapping the armrests in time with the melody. A few diners looked over and smiled. One woman pulled out her phone to record, tears already forming in her eyes, even though she didn't know why this moment felt so important. Elijah didn't notice. He was somewhere else, somewhere his wife used to be, somewhere the bills didn't exist and Nora could run, and everything he'd lost was waiting for him just beyond the next measure. His fingers moved across the keys with the kind of grace that only comes from years of practice. From nights when sleep wouldn't come and music was the only thing that helped. From mornings when he'd wake up early just to play a few notes before work. The song built slowly, each phrase layering on top of the last until the whole room felt like it was holding its breath. When it ended, Nora clapped so hard her palms turned red. "Again," she said, bouncing in her chair. He laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "Let me catch my breath first, little rocket." "But Daddy, one song break. Then I'll play whatever you want." She pouted, but her eyes were still shining. "Promise, promise." That's when the woman walked in. Red suit that probably cost more than Elijah made in 6 months. Expensive heels that clicked against the floor with purpose. Hair pulled back in a way that said she didn't have time for anything that wasn't perfect. The kind of presence that made people move out of the way without her having to ask. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room like she was looking for someone. Her client was already seated at a table near the window, waving her over. Elijah didn't see her. He was pulling a bottle of water from his bag, offering it to Nora. But Nora saw her, and she waved because that's what Nora did. She waved at everyone. Strangers, friends, people who looked like they needed a reason to smile. The woman, Vivian Cross, stopped walking like she'd just been struck by lightning. Her eyes locked on Nora, on the braids, on the wheelchair, on the birthmark above her left eyebrow that looked like a crescent moon. Her hand reached for the doorframe, gripping it hard enough that her knuckles turned white. If you'd been there that night, watching that moment unfold, would you have known? Would you have seen the way Vivian's face went pale? The way her breathing changed? The way she looked at that little girl like she was seeing a ghost? Or would you have just kept eating, oblivious to the fact that everything was about to change? Vivian couldn't move. She stood there, 3 feet from the piano, 3 feet from the man and the girl, 3 feet from a truth she wasn't ready to face, and her entire world tilted sideways. The girl was laughing, clapping, her braids bouncing as she swayed to a rhythm only she could hear. The pink ribbons in her hair caught the light from the fairy bulbs overhead. She had a birthmark above her left eyebrow, small, shaped like a crescent moon. A mark Vivian used to kiss every night before bed. A mark she used to trace with her finger while Lana slept. She had a small mole on her right cheek, just below her eye. Vivian's daughter had that exact mole. The same nose, the same chin, the same way of tilting her head when she smiled. Vivian's daughter had all of those features. Her client called her name from across the room, his voice cutting through the fog in her mind. "Ms. Cross? Our table's ready." She didn't respond. Couldn't respond. Her throat had closed up. Her chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel bands around her ribs and was pulling them tighter with every breath. Her vision blurred at the edges, the restaurant around her fading into nothing except the girl. Just the girl. This isn't possible. Lana was gone. Declared missing 3 years ago after the crash. The police had searched for months. The FBI had opened an investigation. Vivian had torn the desert apart looking for her, hiring teams of people to search places the authorities had already checked. She'd followed leads that went nowhere. She'd driven herself to the edge of madness, chasing shadows and maybes and what-ifs. And yet, here was a girl with her daughter's face, sitting beside a man Vivian had never seen before, laughing like she belonged there, like this was her life, like she'd never been anyone else. Elijah finished adjusting something on the bench and started playing again. A different song this time, something softer, sadder. His eyes were closed, his fingers moving like they had their own memory. Like he played this song so many times it had become part of him. The girl, Nora, he called her, reached out and touched one of the low keys. It made a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the floorboards, and she laughed with delight. "Good job, sweetheart," Elijah said without opening his eyes. Pride in his voice, love in every syllable. Vivian took a step closer, then another. Her heels clicked against the floor, but the music covered the sound. She needed to see the girl's face up close, needed to confirm what every instinct in her body was screaming. Needed to know if she was imagining this or if the impossible was actually happening. She moved slowly, like she was approaching something fragile, something that might disappear if she moved too fast. The girl looked up. Their eyes met. And for a moment, just a moment, Vivian saw recognition. Like the girl knew her. Like some buried part of her remembered. Like there was a flicker of something deeper than memory, something written in DNA and blood and the space between heartbeats. Then the moment passed, and the girl smiled. Innocent, unaware. Vivian's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but her voice came out broken. Elijah opened his eyes and glanced over, his fingers still moving across the keys. He offered a polite smile the way people do when a stranger interrupts something private. "Evening, ma'am. You a fan of WC?" She barely heard him. Her entire focus was on the girl, on the way she tilted her head, on the way her fingers drummed against the wheelchair's armrest. Left hand, right hand, left hand, a pattern Lana used to do when she was thinking. On the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, just like Marcus's used to. "What's her name?" Vivian asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is Nora," Elijah said, his smile widening as he looked down at her. The kind of smile that said everything, that said she was his world, that said he'd burn down cities for her. "My daughter." Vivian's breath hitched. "Your daughter." The words hit her like a physical blow. She wanted to scream, wanted to grab the girl and run. Wanted to call the police and demand answers. Wanted to shake this man and ask him where he'd found her, how he'd taken her, why he thought he had any right to call her his. But she didn't. Because if she was wrong, if this was just a coincidence, just a girl who happened to look like Lana, then she'd destroy an innocent man's life. She'd traumatize a child who'd already been through enough. She'd become the villain in someone else's story. And if she was right, then this man had been raising her daughter for 3 years without knowing, without understanding that somewhere a mother was dying inside, that somewhere a woman was spending every waking moment searching for a ghost. Elijah went back to playing, oblivious to the storm raging inside Vivian. Nora clapped along, oblivious to the fact that her entire world was about to change. The restaurant hummed with conversation, oblivious to the moment unfolding in front of them. And Vivian Cross, one of the most powerful women in the state, someone who'd built an empire from nothing, someone who controlled boardrooms and crushed competitors, stood there shaking, trying to figure out how to ask the one question that could shatter everything. Her client appeared beside her, his hand on her elbow. "Miss Cross, are you feeling all right? You look pale." She pulled away from him, her eyes never leaving Nora. "I'm Phoenix. Should we reschedule? You seem..." I said I'm fine, but she wasn't fine. She was drowning. She was breaking. She was standing in the middle of a crowded restaurant, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. She reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a business card. Vivian Cross. Cross Development Group. Her personal cell phone number printed at the bottom. She set it on the edge of the piano, her fingers lingering on it for a moment before she pulled away. "If you ever need anything," she said to Elijah, her voice strained and tight. "Call me." He glanced at the card, then at her, confusion crossing his face. Thank you." She nodded once, then turned and walked away before her legs gave out, before she collapsed, before she did something she couldn't take back. Behind her, Nora's laughter echoed through the room, bright and clear and completely unaware. And Vivian realized she'd just made a choice. She was going to find out the truth, no matter what it cost, no matter who it hurt, no matter how many lives it destroyed, because that little girl was her daughter. She knew it in her bones, knew it in the way a mother knows, knew it in the ache in her chest that had been there for 3 years and suddenly felt sharper than ever. She walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, her hands shaking, her vision blurred with tears. And behind her, Elijah kept playing, kept smiling at Nora, kept living a life that was about to explode. What would you do if you discovered the child you'd been mourning was alive, but didn't remember you? Would you tear apart their world to get them back? Or would you walk away and let them keep the only family they've ever known? The DNA test kit sat on Vivian's desk for 3 days. Just a white box with blue letters. Simple, harmless looking. But this box held answers that could destroy everything. She'd ordered it the morning after the bistro. Hadn't slept that night. Just sat watching city lights through her office windows, replaying every detail. The birthmark, the mole, the way Nora's fingers drummed. Left, right, left. Exactly like Lana used to. Her assistant knocked. "Ms. Cross, you're 9 o'clock. Cancel it. Cancel everything today." The woman hesitated, then left quietly. Vivian opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a swab. Simple. Scrape your cheek, mail it back, wait for results. They made it sound clinical, like discovering if your dead daughter was alive was just another transaction. She already had the other sample. Thursday night after they left, she paid Ms. Lorraine $500 for Nora's water bottle. The owner looked at her like she'd lost her mind. But money talks. The bottle sat in her safe now, wrapped in plastic. Evidence. Her phone buzzed. Marcus's sister calling again. Vivian declined. Couldn't handle the sympathy anymore. The gentle suggestions that 3 years was long enough to grieve. That Lana was gone and searching wouldn't bring her back. But what if she wasn't gone? She opened the kit, ran the swab inside her cheek, sealed it, set it beside the bottle. Tomorrow she'd send both to the private lab, the expensive one that promised discretion. Her office door opened without knocking. Derek walked in with coffee and concern on his face. "You look terrible." "Thanks." He sat across from her. The Henderson deal's falling apart. What's going on? I think I found her. He froze. Found who? Lana. The name hung between them like something explosive. Derek set his coffee down carefully. Vivian, we've talked about this. I saw her. Thursday night. A little girl with Lana's face. Her birthmark. Everything. Kids look similar sometimes. That doesn't. It's her, Derek. Her voice cracked. I know it's her. Silence. Then, what are you going to do? DNA test. And if it matches? She hadn't let herself think that far. I don't know. He walked to the window. If that's Lana, someone's been raising her for 3 years. That man at the piano thinks she's his daughter. And you're about to destroy his world. She was mine first. I know. But that doesn't make this easier. Her phone lit up. Text from her investigator. Found the accident reports. She opened her laptop. 3 files loaded. Police reports from the crash. Photos of twisted metal. Victim lists. There. Marcus Cross. Deceased. And below. Lana Cross. Age 6. Missing. Presumed deceased. She scrolled to the second vehicle. Driver. Kendra Ward. Deceased. Passenger. Unknown minor. Female. 6 to 7 years old. Spinal injury. County General. Unknown minor. No name. No ID. No family listed. Vivian's chest tightened. The hospital took in a child with no identification. And somehow she ended up with Elijah Ward. Her phone rang. The investigator. Tell me. The hospital was chaos that night. Multiple casualties. Power outage. They were running on generators. Someone assumed the girl belonged to the wards. Filed her under their name temporarily. Then Elijah took custody and nobody questioned it. Nobody questioned it. The system was overwhelmed. They needed kids out of hospitals and into homes. Ward passed background checks, and the girl had no one else. She had me. Silence. I know. Vivian closed her eyes. Saw Lana's face. The way she laughed. The way she'd kiss Vivian's cheek every morning and say, love you, Mommy. 3 years of that little girl growing up without her. Find out everything, Vivian said. Where he works. Where they live. Everything. Already on it. She hung up and stared at the ceiling. Wanted to scream. Wanted to drive to wherever they lived and take her daughter back right now. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not without proof that would hold up in court. Derek was watching her. What now? Now I wait for results. She looked at him, something cold settling in her expression. And when they're positive, I'm bringing my daughter home. Even if it destroys him, even if it destroys everyone. Because some things mattered more than mercy. Getting her daughter back mattered more than anything. What would you do if the truth meant destroying an innocent family? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Hit that notification bell because this is just the beginning. Elijah noticed the car Tuesday morning. Black sedan, tinted windows, parked across from the garage. He'd walked past it 3 times during lunch. It hadn't moved, just sitting there. He told himself he was paranoid, probably belonged to someone nearby. He was seeing threats that didn't exist. But the car was still there when he left at 6. Still there when he picked up Nora. Still there when they walked home. Daddy, can we get a puppy? Nora asked at the pet store window. Not yet, sweetheart. Our apartment doesn't allow pets. When we get a bigger place? He smiled, but it felt heavy. We'll see. They walked home through streets that smelled like grease and Chinese food. Nora sang about butterflies and rainbows, off-key and loud and perfect. Home was cracked concrete steps and rusted railings. But inside, he made it warm. Pictures on walls. Nora's drawings on the fridge. A bookshelf he'd built from scrap wood. He made spaghetti while Nora did homework. Jared sauce. Sale price garlic bread. Green beans she'd negotiate eating. 5 bites, he said. 3. 4. Deal. She grinned like she'd won. They ate together, Nora talking about art class and a boy named Christopher who ate glue. About her teacher's haircut. About the field trip next month. How much, he asked. $20. He did the math. 20 for the trip. 60 for medication. 90 for the overdue electric bill. His paycheck wouldn't cover it. Never did. But he'd figure it out. Always did. We'll make it work. After dinner, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Steady. Deliberate. Hello. Who is this? The line went dead. He stared at the phone. Wrong number probably. Nothing to worry about. But the car outside. The phone call. The woman in red who'd stared at Nora like she was seeing a ghost. He shook his head. Paranoia. He was exhausted and stressed. Daddy, look. Nora held up her paper with her name in crooked letters. That's perfect, sweetheart. Later, after Nora slept, he stood at the window. The black sedan was gone. Relief washed through him. Then his phone buzzed again. Different number. Who is this? A woman's voice. Smooth. Professional. Mr. Ward. Depends who's asking. Rachel Winters. Attorney with Morrison and Hale. I need to speak with you about Nora. His blood went cold. What about her? Better in person. Are you available tomorrow? No. Tell me now, or I'm hanging up. A pause. It's regarding her custody. The words hit like a fist. What? I have a client who believes Nora may be her biological daughter. We'd like to arrange a DNA test. He hung up. His hand shook. Chest tight. He wanted to throw the phone. Wanted to grab Nora and run. The phone rang again. Same number. He let it ring until it stopped. Then it started again. He turned it off and collapsed on the couch. This couldn't be happening. Nora was his daughter. He'd raised her, fed her, held her through surgeries and therapy, loved her, and now someone wanted to take her away. The woman in red. Had to be. She'd looked at Nora like she knew something. And now lawyers were calling about custody. He thought about the crash, the chaos, waking up in the hospital, being told his wife was dead and there was a little girl with no family. How he'd said yes without thinking. Nobody questioned it. The paperwork was rushed, and he'd taken Nora home and built a life around her. But what if there'd been a mistake? What if Nora belonged to someone else? His stomach turned. He walked to Nora's bedside and watched her sleep. Peaceful. Safe. Her hand curled around the stuffed elephant from last Christmas. She was his daughter. Had to be. Because if she wasn't, everything would shatter. And the little girl who called him daddy would be torn away. He wouldn't let that happen. But deep down, he knew the truth. If that woman was Nora's real mother, no amount of fighting would change it. And he was about to lose the only light left in his life. Would you fight for a child you raised, even if the law wasn't on your side? Comment below and subscribe with notifications on, because the next chapter changes everything. The DNA results came back Friday. Vivian's hand shook as she opened the envelope. Alone in her office, city sprawling below. None of it mattered now. Only the paper she was about to unfold. She told herself she'd be calm, professional, but her breath came in gasps. She pulled out the paper and read. Probability of maternity, 99.97%. The paper slipped from her fingers. Nora was Lana. Her daughter was alive. The sob that tore through her was raw and primal. 3 years of grief breaking free. She collapsed in her chair, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. Her baby was alive. Alive and 6 miles away calling another man daddy. She called Rachel Winters. It's a match. I'll file today. We'll request emergency custody. 2 weeks. Maybe less. 2 weeks until she could hold her daughter again. But those 2 weeks would destroy Elijah Ward. She closed her eyes and saw his face. The way he'd looked at Nora with so much love. The way he'd called her my daughter with absolute conviction. He didn't know. Ms. Cross. Rachel's voice pulled her back. There's something else. Mr. Ward was contacted yesterday. He knows what's coming. Vivian's chest tightened. What did he say? He hung up. Will he fight? Probably. But he doesn't have a case. The child isn't legally his. When we present DNA evidence, the court will rule in your favor. How long will he have with her? Typically, the transition is immediate. Immediate. One day, Nora would wake up in Elijah's apartment. The next, she'd be in Vivian's penthouse. But she'd lose the man who'd raised her. Proceed with everything, Vivian said. I want my daughter back. She hung up and pressed her forehead against the window. Cold. Grounding. Her phone buzzed. Derek, are you okay? She typed. The results came back. Yes. What now? Now I get her back. She picked up the DNA report. Evidence. The thing that would win her case. But as she locked her office, one thought circled through her mind. What kind of mother takes a child from the only parent she's ever known? The elevator descended. City lights blurred past. In 2 weeks, her daughter would be home. In 2 weeks, Elijah Ward would be destroyed. And Vivian would have to live with that choice. Her car was waiting, engine running. She slid into the back seat and closed her eyes. This was justice, but it was also cruel. And she was doing it anyway. Have you ever chosen what's legally right over what feels morally devastating? Where's the line? Drop your thoughts and hit subscribe because the courtroom battle is next and nobody walks away unscathed. The courthouse smelled like old paper and broken promises. Elijah sat outside courtroom 3, leg bouncing. His lawyers shuffled documents beside him with practiced calm. But this wasn't routine. This was Elijah's life falling apart. Nor was it school. Didn't know any of this. He told her he had a meeting, that everything was fine. He'd lied to her face. His lawyer, Marcus Young, cleared his throat. Mr. Ward, I need to be honest. This isn't a case we can win. Then why am I here? Because you have the right to fight. But DNA evidence is conclusive. Ms. Cross is Nora's biological mother. Legally, biology trumps everything. I've raised her 3 years. I know, but you don't have legal custody. The arrangement was informal. Elijah's hands clenched. So I just lose her? We can argue for visitation rights. Transitional custody. There's no way to make this easier on Nora. His voice cracked. She's 8. She called me daddy. And you're telling me I hand her to a stranger? Ms. Cross isn't a stranger. She's someone Nora's never met. The courtroom doors opened. A woman in navy stepped out. Behind her came Vivian Cross. Elijah froze. She looked different in daylight. Tired. Makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes or how her hands gripped her briefcase. Their eyes met across the hallway. 2 people on opposite sides of an impossible situation. Both drowning. Both convinced they were right. Then Vivian's lawyer touched her arm. We should go inside. Vivian walked past without speaking. The doors swung shut. Marcus touched Elijah's shoulder. It's time. The courtroom was small. Wood paneling. Fluorescent lights humming too loud. The judge's bench felt like a throne. Elijah sat, while Vivian sat across the aisle with her expensive lawyers. The judge was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and reading glasses. She looked over documents with the expression of someone who'd seen every version of human pain. This is a petition for emergency custody, she said flatly. Ms. Cross seeks immediate placement of the minor child, Nora Ward, also known as Lana Cross. Hearing Nora called by another name made Elijah's chest tighten. Vivian's lawyer stood. Rachel Winters. Perfect hair. Expensive suit. Your Honor, DNA evidence is conclusive. The child in Mr. Ward's care is biologically my client's daughter. Lana Cross was reported missing 3 years ago. Due to hospital errors, she was placed with Mr. Ward incorrectly. Mr. Ward had no knowledge. Correct. But ignorance doesn't change law. Ms. Cross has searched 3 years. She has legal rights as biological parent. The judge looked at Elijah. Do you dispute the DNA results? He wanted to say yes. Wanted to argue love mattered more than genetics. But truth was truth. No, he said quietly. Then legally, this is straightforward. The child belongs with her biological mother. Your Honor, Marcus stood. Mr. Ward has been this child's primary caregiver 3 years. Removing her would be traumatic. We request transitional custody. Time to prepare Nora. Visitation rights. Rachel cut in. Ms. Cross has been denied access 3 years through no fault of her own. Further delay only prolongs separation. The child needs reunion immediately. The child has a name, Elijah said sharply. It's Nora, and she has a father. Me. The judge looked over her glasses. Mr. Ward, I understand your attachment, but biology is the foundation of custody law. Unless there's abuse or neglect, which there isn't, the child goes to her biological parent. So just like that, I lose her. You can petition for visitation after placement. After, his voice rose. After she's already gone? After she's confused and wondering why I abandoned her. Mr. Ward, lower your voice. No. He stood, ignoring Marcus pulling his sleeve. You don't get to make decisions about Nora's life without understanding what this costs. She's not property. She's a little girl who's been through hell. She lost her ability to walk, lost the woman she thought was her mother. And now you're taking away the one person she has left. Sit down, Mr. Ward. Why? So you can hand her to someone she's never met? Mr. Ward. She wakes up crying from nightmares. She has panic attacks. She needs help with things most kids do themselves. And I'm the one who knows all that. Not her. Vivian stood, voice breaking. She's my daughter. She was your daughter. Elijah shot back. Now she's mine. She was stolen from me. I didn't steal her. I saved her. Silence. The judge removed her glasses. Both of you sit down. Now. They sat. Here's what's happening. Ms. Cross, you regain custody immediately. Mr. Ward, supervise visitation once weekly for 3 months. Then we'll reassess. She banged the gavel. Adjourned. Elijah sat frozen. Across the aisle, Vivian was crying. Her lawyers congratulating her. She'd won, but nobody looked like a winner. Marcus touched his arm. I am sorry. Elijah walked out. Down the hallway. Past people waiting for their own impossible decisions. Into sunlight that felt too bright and cruel. He sat on the courthouse steps and put his head in his hands. He had to pack Nora's things. Explain to an 8-year-old that he wasn't her father. Watch her leave with a stranger. Let go of the only thing keeping him alive. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Ward. Vivian's voice. He should have hung up. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. The word hit like a slap. Apologize? You just took my daughter and sorry fixes that. She's my daughter too. No, she was your daughter 3 years ago. You weren't there for surgeries, for therapy, for when she cried herself to sleep. I was there. For all of it. Silence. Then I know. You know nothing about her. Then tell me. Her voice cracked. Please. He wanted to refuse, but something in her voice stopped him. Desperation. The same desperation he felt. She loves music, especially piano. She says it makes her feel like her legs work. She counts beats with her fingers. Left, right, left. He heard Vivian crying. She has nightmares about the accident. Wakes up crying. I hold her until she sleeps. 2, 3 times a week. What else? Singing. Any song. She just needs to hear a voice. A long pause. What else? She's scared of thunderstorms. Hates green beans, but eats them if I make a game. Wants a puppy, but our apartment doesn't allow pets. Reads at 5th grade level, but asks me to read because she likes the voices I do. His throat tightened. She calls me daddy. Every morning. Every night. For 3 years. And tomorrow I tell her it was a lie. It wasn't a lie, Vivian said softly. You are her father. Just not how either of us thought. That doesn't make this easier. I know. Elijah started walking. When are you taking her? Tomorrow. Immediate placement. Tomorrow. 24 hours to say goodbye. She's going to be scared. I know. She's going to cry. Ask for me. I know. And you're letting her suffer because of paperwork. I'm not trying to hurt her. I'm trying to save her. I buried an empty casket. I spent 3 years searching. I deserve to have her back. And what does Nora deserve? The question hung in the air. Vivian didn't answer right away. I don't know anymore. Then maybe you're not ready to be her mother. He hung up, walked until he reached the elementary school, stood outside the fence watching kids play, running, jumping, things Nora couldn't do but never complained about. She was in there, learning, laughing, unaware her world was ending. And he had to tell her. He walked home slowly. The apartment felt smaller, emptier. He sat at the kitchen table and started to pack. Nora's clothes, books, drawings, wheelchair accessories, her stuffed elephant. Each item felt like tearing off skin. When Mrs. Chun brought Nora home at 4, everything was ready. Daddy, Nora rolled through the door. We made volcanoes today. Mine exploded highest. He knelt and hugged her tight. Too tight. That's amazing, sweetheart. She looked at the boxes. Why's my stuff packed? This was it. He took her hands. Nora, we need to talk about something important. Her smile faded. Am I in trouble? No, baby. But something's happened. Something big. She looked scared. What? You know you're the most important person in the world to me? She nodded. That's still true. Always will be. But I found out something. About before the accident. About your real family. You're my real family. The words broke him. I know it feels that way. and I love you like you're mine. But there's a woman, Vivian, and she's your biological mother. Nora's face scrunched. What does that mean? It means she's the mommy who had you first, before the accident, and she's been looking for you. But I don't remember her. I know, but that doesn't change who she is. I don't want another mommy. I want you. You pulled her close. I want you too, more than anything. But the court says you have to live with her now. No. Her voice was small. Scared. I don't want to go. I know, sweetheart. Please don't make me go. I don't have a choice. She started crying. Big sobs that shook her body. I want to stay. Please, Daddy. I'll be good. I promise. This isn't about being good. He was crying too. You're perfect. But sometimes grown-ups have to follow rules even when they don't want to. I hate those rules. Me too, baby. He held her while she cried, while she asked questions he couldn't answer, while she begged him to fix what he couldn't change. When she finally cried herself to sleep in his arms, he sat on their apartment floor and felt his heart break into pieces he'd never put back together. Tomorrow a car would come. Tomorrow Vivian would take Nora. Tomorrow he'd become a stranger to the little girl who called him Daddy. And there was nothing he could do. What would you do with one night left? How would you say goodbye? Drop your thoughts and subscribe because the final chapter reveals if love is enough to heal what's broken. Hit notifications so you don't miss the ending. The black car arrived at 9. Elijah had been awake since 4. Sat in darkness with coffee going cold. Watched sunrise through their crooked window. Felt like watching the world end in slow motion. Nora had slept in his bed, curled against his side. He'd memorized everything. How her braids spread across the pillow. The small snoring sound. How her fingers twitched like she was counting music. When she woke, her eyes were red. Is it today? Yes, sweetheart. She didn't speak, just held his shirt and pressed her face against his chest. He'd fed her breakfast, helped her dress in new clothes Vivian sent, packed her elephant, done everything except the one thing that mattered. Let her go. 3 sharp knocks on the door, like nails hammered into a coffin. Elijah opened it. Vivian stood there in jeans and a sweater. No muck-up, hair pulled back. She looked like she'd slept as badly as he had. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. They stood there, 2 people who destroyed each other without meaning to. Can I come in? He stepped aside. She walked in slowly, taking in the space. Small kitchen, second-hand furniture, water stain on the ceiling. Her eyes lingered on the old piano in the corner. Then she saw Nora. The little girl sat in her wheelchair by the window, clutching her elephant, face turned away. Vivian's breath caught, a small wounded sound. Nora. Her voice shook. Hi, sweetheart. Nora didn't respond. Vivian moved closer, kneeling beside the wheelchair. I'm Vivian. You can call me whatever you want. I know this is scary, but I promise I'll take care of you. I already have someone who takes care of me, Nora said, still not looking. Vivian's face crumpled before she pulled herself together. I know, and Elijah is wonderful. Then why can't I stay? The question was so simple, so devastating. Vivian looked at Elijah, eyes begging for help. Because I'm your mom, Vivian said finally. And I've missed you so much. I just want to know you again. I don't remember you. I know, but maybe we can make new memories. Nora finally looked at her, really looked, studying her face. Do I look like you? Vivian smiled through tears. Yeah, you have my nose. And my chin. See? She tilted her head. Nora reached out and touched Vivian's face, small fingers tracing. I have his eyes, though, she said, pointing at Elijah. No, baby, Elijah said gently. You have your mom's eyes, but they're brown like yours. Lots of people have brown eyes. She looked between them, trying to make sense of something senseless. I don't understand. I know, Elijah said, kneeling beside her. And that's okay. But what you need to know is I love you. That will never change. No matter where you live, I will always love you. Then come with me. The words hit like a punch. I can't, sweetheart. Why not? Because that's not how it works. Then I'll stay here. You can't. Why? Panic rising. Why does everything have to change? I like it here. I like our Thursday nights. I like our life. I know, baby. Then let me stay. Full on sobbing now. Please, Daddy. Please don't make me go. Vivian was crying too, hand over her mouth. Elijah pulled Nora into his arms. rocked her, sang softly until her sobs turned to hiccups. "I love you," he whispered. "So much. I love you too." He looked at Vivian over Nora's head, saw pain, guilt, love that had been trapped 3 years. She was a mother who'd lost everything getting a second chance. He was a father who'd found everything losing it again. They were both right, both wrong, and Nora was caught in the middle. "We should go," Vivian said softly. "I have a room ready. Physical therapist coming this afternoon. I just want to take her home." Elijah nodded, couldn't speak. He helped Nora into her coat, kissed the top of her head, put her elephant in her lap, wheeled her to the door. "Wait," Vivian said. She turned to Elijah. "Would you like to come? Just for today? To help her settle?" He looked at her, surprised. "I know what the court said, but Nora needs you, and maybe we both need to put her first." Something shifted in Elijah's chest. Not hope, but close. "Yeah, I'd like that." So they went together. 3 broken people trying to figure out how to be family when nothing made sense. Vivian's penthouse was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, art on walls. Nora's room was pink and purple with everything a little girl could want. But it wasn't home. Nora looked around with wide eyes, but didn't smile. Just held her elephant tighter. "What do you think?" Vivian asked nervously. "It's pretty. We can change anything. Paint, different furniture, anything. Can we get a piano?" Vivian's face lit up. "Yes, absolutely. The best piano money can buy. I just want one like Daddy's. The old one." Vivian glanced at Elijah. He shrugged, small sad smile. "She has good taste." They spent the day together. Vivian tried too hard. Elijah tried to be helpful, but felt like an intruder. Nora just seemed lost. By evening, she was exhausted. Vivian helped her into bed, but Nora wouldn't let go of Elijah's hand. "You're leaving, aren't you? Just for tonight. I'll come back. Promise." "When?" "Soon. Tomorrow." He looked at Vivian. She nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. Tomorrow. And you'll play piano with me?" "If your mom has one." Vivian was already on her phone. "I'll have one delivered first thing." Nora finally smiled. Just a little. Elijah kissed her forehead and stood. Vivian walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said, "for coming, for helping, for loving her the way you did." "Do," he corrected. "The way I do. That doesn't stop." "I know." She paused. "The court said supervised visits once weekly, but I think Nora needs more. So if you want to come every day, even just an hour, you can." He stared. "Why?" "Because she's not mine alone anymore. She's ours. Both of ours. And I don't want to take away the father she knows just because I'm the mother she doesn't remember." Something loosened in his chest. Not forgiveness, but understanding. This woman wasn't a villain. Just a mother fighting for her daughter. Same as him. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep loving her. I couldn't stop if I tried." He left and rode the elevator down. Stepped into cool night air. City lights blurred through tears. His phone buzzed. "Vivian, she's asking for you to sing." "What song?" He smiled despite everything. Texted back the lullaby lyrics. Then added, "She likes funny voices." 3 dots. Then, "I'll try my best." He walked home through streets that felt different. Emptier, but not hopeless. Because tomorrow he'd go back. And the day after. And the day after that. Nora wasn't gone. Just somewhere else. And maybe that was enough. Maybe love didn't require the same roof. Maybe family was bigger than blood and more flexible than law. Maybe broken things could heal into something new even if they'd never be what they were. The apartment was too quiet. Nora's bed empty. Her wheelchair spot vacant. But her drawings on the fridge. Her laugh on walls. Her presence in every corner. She'd been his daughter 3 years. She'd be his daughter forever. Just differently now. He sat at the piano and played Claire de Lune. Soft and sad and beautiful. Played it for the little girl who loved music. For the woman learning to be a mother again. For himself and the life turned inside out. Somewhere across the city, Vivian sang a lullaby in a voice that cracked but tried anyway. Because that's what mothers do. They try, even when it hurts. Even when they don't know how. Nora fell asleep holding her elephant, fingers counting invisible music. Left, right, left. A pattern connecting her to 2 parents who'd never meant to share her, but we're learning anyway. In the morning when the piano was delivered, both Elijah and Vivian would be there, teaching Nora a song requiring 4 hands instead of 2, playing music together because sometimes that's all you can do. Find notes that connect instead of divide. Build something new from broken pieces. Because family isn't just blood. It's choice and love and showing up even when everything hurts. Saying yes when easy is no. Sharing when you want to hoard. Letting go and holding on simultaneously. The story didn't end how anyone expected. No villain, no hero, just people trying their best. Just a little girl learning love doesn't have to choose. Just 2 parents learning the greatest act of love is making room for someone else. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. What would you do if you were Elijah, Vivian, Nora? No easy answers. Just choices. Just love. Just people figuring out what family means when nothing's simple. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share if this moved you. Subscribe so you don't miss stories that make you feel something real. Turn on notifications because the best stories challenge us, break us, rebuild us into something better, and maybe inspire us to love bigger than we are.